He's affirmed, yeah. So the church affirmed his writings, so yeah.
The church? Which church affirmed his writings?
The church that Christ built, Matthew 16, Peter, you are Peter, and you are the rock, and on you I shall build my church. And, yeah, so the church will be the offices, right? So,
Peter confirmed Paul. Huh? Where does Peter confirm Paul?
So we have in 2 Peter, we have in Galatians chapter 2.
Who's the author of 2 Peter?
Peter, of course.
Why do you believe that?
Because that's what tradition says.
That's not what tradition says. Or should I say, that's not what scholarship says. Scholarship says 2 Peter is not authored by Peter. Based upon what he writes is not in accordance with how Peter writes and what he would write about and when he wrote. So according to Christian scholarship, the second epistle of Peter is not authored by Peter. You just don't know who wrote it.
Yeah, see, I disagree with that. It's based on false information.
You can write this stuff down that you keep disagreeing with.
No, I'm aware. Yeah. So some of the things they use, right, is they look at the lex legomena.
What I want you to do. Look, Merlin, what I want you to do, right, is all these things you're disagreeing with, write them down. This Hamza said this Hamza said that, this Hamza said that. Then I want you to go away and tick off each thing. Right, he said that, is that true? Research it, my man, and ask yourself your question. Why do I keep going with minority opinions? Why am I ignoring majorities who say Peter's not written by Peter? And why do I cling to this minority opinion?
Yeah,
because you have to then question your own intellectual integrity. Because you have to question yourself, am I just going with these minorities because they suit my position? Or is there merit in these minority positions? Because I'll say it again to you. 2 Peter, according to the majority of Christian scholarship, is not written by Peter. Therefore, one second. So if you're using 2 Peter as some kind of glowing example of Peter exonerating Paul, it's out the window because it's not Peter.
Okay, do you believe in all scholarly consensus then? Every single scholarly consensus you believe in?
Look, I'll make it. I'll say it to you.
See, exactly. You don't believe in all consensus, right? You believe in your faith.
You're the Christian. You're the Christian. I'm not the Christian here. It's your scholars, not my scholars. I'm asking you, as a Christian, when your scholars say something, why are you against them? It's nothing to do with me. It's not what I think about your Christian scholarship or whether it's true or not. I'm just bringing it to the table. Your Christian scholars say this. Why do you disagree? Your Christian scholars say this. Why do you disagree? Because everything you disagree with is your scholars, not my scholars. I'm not beholden to anything they say, but you are.
Yeah, I think so. One thing I'm understanding though, Christian scholarship is very, very different from Islamic scholarship, right? We do not have an ulama. We don't have that, right? Christians quote-unquote scholarship, right, is very independent of the faith, right? They're not really a part of the faith. Like, in ulama, right, the scholars would be kind of almost like religious guides for the community, for the ummah, right? For us, they're not like that. They're very independent people, right, who have their own personal opinions. They're not like safeguarders of the faith or anything like that. They're just academics who have the Christian title. So in Islam, right, being a scholar, right, is tied to the faith, right? In Christianity, they're not tied to each other.
Look. Your scholars know history better than you. Yeah? Your scholars know manuscript evidence better than you. So who are you to tell them that they're wrong?
Because I can find scholars who agree with me easily.
I know you can.
What's your evidence that Christian scholars say this anyway? I'm sure you can't even name them. You can name like maybe two.
I'll say it again.
Three. Really know the consensus. They really know the consensus. Be honest, right?
Merlin, I'm not going to do your homework for you. Yeah, I don't roll
claims, right? Things I don't believe in.
Have you written down everything I've said?
No, I'm aware of them. The whole thing about 2 Peter, the whole thing about authorship.
Merlin, I want you to be intellectually honest here. Write down the things I've said. Yeah, go check them out, and then you tell me.
What must it happen?
Okay. So why do you go against Christian scholarship when it says 2 Peter is not authored by Peter?
Because, first of all, look at the arguments, right? One of the arguments they put forth, right, is that the vocabulary of 2 Peter is too, high class for a Galilean fisherman, right? That's one of their claims, right? I disagree with that conclusion because we knew that biblical writers, right, also had, even people in the early...
Who's we?
The historians, right? Historians are aware, right? Even in early, centuries, right? Certain writers, right, used to have people who claim and write for them, and they will put things in certain ways, right? That's more how they would word it, right? So, for example, we know that in Seneca, right, although Seneca wrote his letters, right, to a Stoic, he had someone, a scribe, come write for him, right, and he would word things a certain way. So the reason, so one explanation, right, for
are your scholars not aware of this? Are your scholars not aware of these things? You don't know scholars now? Come on.
I can quote scholars that agree with me. Like, if you want to play the scholars game, we can go back and forth and name scholars if you want.
We're in the scholars game. I'm just asking you the consensus amongst Christian scholarship.
I don't hear though. Prove this consensus though. There is no consensus. There's no consensus. That's what you've heard from people. There's no consensus. You cannot name one proof of evidence that's the consensus. That's just what's commonly repeated around. That is hearsay. And you know yourself that you cannot give me one single like statistic or kind of like consensus that existed. There is no consensus like that. You heard that from people, yes, from people.
I heard it from who?
From people, like, it's a common thing that people say, like, there's no such consensus. Name a statistic.
Just so I understand. Let me just play this game. So remind me about the second epistle of Peter and why you believe Peter wrote it. Just let's do that first. Why do you believe Peter wrote it?
The same way we know any text, like in the ancient church, right? How do we know that a certain text written by a certain person?
No. I'm asking you why you believe Peter wrote 2 Peter. That's all I'm asking.
The same way I know that Seneca wrote his letters, or
I'm asking you, how do you know Peter wrote? Oh my God, we just answered a question. How do you know?
Tradition.
Tradition, why? Because his name's attributed to it, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. And why did the scholars say they don't believe it was Peter?
Okay. What do you mean by scholars? Like, are you nitpicking scholars? I mean, like, why do certain historians think that the Holocaust never happened?
Why do scholars say it's not Peter, and why are they wrong?
The same reason why some historians say the Holocaust never happened, the same reason why some historians say that some people say the moon landing never happened. They're going off of the evidence, they're coming to their own conclusions. Like, you're nitpicking here, you're saying scholars agree in this, right, like, as though there's agreement or consensus, which you haven't even proven to me. There's no such consensus.
Have you heard the argument against the second epistle of Peter being authored by Peter? Yes or no?
I just named one. I just mentioned one. It's based on the lex monomina. So basically, the amount of unique words used in Second Peter, right, indicates that whoever wrote it had a very high vocabulary, which will be unlikely for someone like Peter, who was a fisherman. I'm then going against that by saying that he could have easily had a scribe write while wording things in his own way.
Could have, would have, should have. Okay, fair enough. So you're saying he could have had a scribe differently.
Yeah. No, because I'm saying that there's
so the only evidence that you have then that you believe it's by Peter is that Peter's written on it. Is that right?
No, that's not. I'm just saying though, like their reasoning does not necessarily conclude that he never wrote it, because there could be explanations why that is the case. You don't necessarily need to jump to the conclusion that Second Peter wasn't written by Peter based on that evidence, because
because his name Peter's on it, you believe Peter wrote it. That's it.
No, because tradition.
Tradition based upon Peter's name is on it. Yes, I agree.
Huh?
Okay. The tradition is based upon his name being there. Peter, the second epistle of Peter. Scholars have looked at the second epistle. Oh my Gideon. I can't help you. You have to go do this research yourself. All right, let's have a look. Let me see. Wait a second. Scholarly debate can divide into two parts, external and internal evidence. The external evidence for its authenticity, though feasible, critics have presented mainly in these conclusions. Much of this debate remains from Professor Robert E. Piricle's article alluded to 2 Peter in the Apostolic Fathers, which compiles many of the allusions of the Apostolic Fathers. 1 second. So the internal debate focuses on the style, ideology, and relation to other works and stories. One of the internal arguments against the authenticity of 2 Peter has gained significantly popularity since the 1980s. Being more precise is the argument that the scholar Bo Reich first formulated in 1964, where 2 Peter is clearly an example of an ancient literary genre known as Testament, which originally arose from Moses' farewell discourse in Deuteronomy. Richard J. Bolcom, who popularizes this argument, wrote that the Testament genre contains two main elements: ethical warnings to be followed after the death of the writer and revelations of the future. The significant fact about the Testament genre was not in its marks but in its nature. It is argued that a piece of Testament literature is meant to be completely transparent fiction. The argument has its detractors who classify it as syllogism. Other characterize the writing as a farewell speech because it lacks semblance of final greetings or ties with the recipients. There's a big... Let me just try and find the... Let me a second. Anyway, I'm not going to do this now anyway. So this is one thing for you to go and check out, because I want you to go and research this stuff. And I want you to come back. And I'll chat with you anytime you want, Merlin. Follow me. I'll follow you back. We'll message. We'll have a conversation again.
Okay,
No
I'll follow you,
Right,
No,
right.
the thing is,
I'm demonstrating
to ask you something,
demonstrate to you now. I'm going to demonstrate to you right now that Paul was not accepted. Paul's teachings was not accepted by the disciples of Jesus. How's that?
Go ahead. Go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
Why was he told to take the Nazarite vow?
Come again?
Why was Paul told to take the Nazarite vow?
Because he wasn't a Nazarene.
Why did the disciples of Jesus, James, Peter, and John, all say that Paul has to go and take the Nazarite vow? For what reason?
Because they might have been doubtful or skeptical of him, because he was formerly known as someone who killed those in the church, and so they wanted to test his faith and if he really repented. Imagine, because remember, right? Paul, when he came to church, right, he had killed their friends, right? So imagine someone killed your friend, right, and then said, "Oh, Aki, I'm a Muslim now. Alhamdulillah." Would you believe it straight away? This man just murdered your friends, right? You'd be very skeptical, right? And you'll say, "Okay, do these certain things, right, so we can be sure of you." So they were skeptical of him. He was a new convert, right?
I thought you said Peter confirmed him.
Yes, he did. It's confirmed him.
So is Peter skeptical of him or confirming him?
Yeah, in the beginning he was skeptical. Of course, he was skeptical of him.
No. When Paul came to Jerusalem,
yeah,
did Peter say, "Oh, it's all right. I know this guy. He's with me"?
Yeah.
Did Peter do that?
Yes. So he doesn't really give a time span, right? We don't know how long he stayed with them, right? So based on Galatians, right, because we're not given a time span, right, it may seem like he met them. Hey, look at this. Oh, good, you're good. But for all we know, it could have taken years. That process could have taken years. That process of confirmation could have taken years. We don't know how long it took.
Look, Merlin. You do know every time you mention Galatians, you're just digging a hole for yourself. Are you aware of that?
Go ahead.
Are you aware of it or not?
You seem to know more than me, so please show me.
Look. I do know more than you. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes. I do know more than you, and that's what I'm saying to you. Oh, okay. So I'm asking the question now because I like to peel an orange. Okay. So why was Paul told to take the Nazarite vow? And you don't need to guess the answer. The answer is clearly in the New Testament.
Because his history as a persecutor of the church, which made all the disciples very skeptical of him.
No, that's not why. Now you're just making stuff up.
I'm waiting for an answer. So what's your take then?
Okay, because Paul was teaching something against the teachings of the disciples of Jesus. Yeah, and the Jews were mad for what Paul was teaching. And the disciples of Jesus said to Paul, "You need to go take the Nazarite vow to show these people you're still under the law and you don't believe the law's been it's finished now."
Okay, so I disagree with that. Do you have any evidence that he went against the law?
Galatians 3.
Okay, so have you read Acts 15?
Read Galatians 3:10.
We read Acts 15, so...
What do you think Acts 15...
You're saying, though...
What do you think Acts 15 says?
Oh, yeah, so Acts 15, right, that's the Jerusalem Council, right? And it's to discuss whether or not new converts in the faith need to be circumcised, right? Which would be the law.
What does that have to do with anything?
Because it has to do with the law, right? Because that whole issue is the law, right? The Mosaic law said they need to be circumcised to be a part of Israel, right? And so, since it's a part of the law, right, it needs to be something that needs to be discussed. Huh?
Who did? Who needed to keep the law?
No.
What was the question of the Council of Jerusalem?
Whether or not new converts into the faith should be circumcised.
Right. What's that got to do with the Jews?
Well, you claim that the reason why Paul had to take the Nazarene vow, right, was because he was treating against the law, right? And so...
Okay, let me ask you a very simple question. Was Paul teaching Jews they were no longer justified by the law?
Yeah, of course.
Of course. And were the disciples in agreement with this?
Yes, I believe so, if you look at Acts 15.
Acts 15 is to do with Gentiles, not Jews.
Yeah, but remember, they're coming into the Christian church now, right? They're coming to the new covenant. The new covenant does not have these new requirements. And yeah.
So this is the point. The
thing is, the Jews are already circumcised. So why would they need to be circumcised again? They're already circumcised, so of course we wouldn't deal with them. But
right. But this is where your confusion is. Okay. Acts 15 is a question about do Gentiles who follow the Christ need to follow Mosaic law? So the question is about do Gentiles need to follow Mosaic law? That's the Council of Jerusalem. That's what it's referring to. All right. We're not talking about Gentiles here. We're talking about Jews. We're talking about Paul teaching Jews. They're no longer justified by the law. They no longer need to be circumcised. Yeah?
Yeah.
Right. So Paul was teaching that, yes?
Mm. Yes.
Right. And did the disciples agree with what Paul was teaching or disagree?
I believe they agreed, yeah, they agreed.
Right. Well, you're wrong. Because they told him to go take the Nazarite vow to show these people you're not teaching that. We know you're not teaching that. But to show these people you're not teaching that, you need to go take the Nazarite vow.
Okay. Now, show me how that leads to that conclusion. Show me that. How does him taking the Nazarite vow means then he isn't teaching that the observance of the law?
Okay. I'll quote your Bible verbatim. All right? Word for word. Listen. When Paul comes to Jerusalem, and he tells the brothers what he's been doing, work amongst the Gentiles, and they say, yes, but we have thousands of Jews here who have come to Christ, who are zealous for the law, and they've heard that you're teaching Jews that live amongst the Gentiles, they no longer need to keep the law. To show them, they said, we have 4 people here to take a vow. Go with them and have their head shaved and take the vow to show these that there's no truth in this, what they're saying about you. Okay, so they were saying they've heard that you're teaching Jews they're no longer justified by the law. To show they're not doing that, take the Nazarite vow.
What verse is this? Right. Is it Galatians 3?
Listen, that's what they... No. Galatians 3 is where Paul is teaching Jews they're no longer justified by the law. Where Paul is teaching the curse of the law has been removed and Jesus is now the curse, has taken on the curse. All right, and we're no longer under the law. The Jews in Jerusalem, when they heard this, were mad with Paul. When Paul came to Jerusalem, the disciples of Jesus said, they've heard you've done this thing. To show you've not done this thing, go do this thing, and they'll know you did it.
Is it Acts, isn't it?
You have to work it out, mate.
Acts what?
There you go. Someone's put it in the chat for you. Acts 21, 17 to 24.
Okay, hold on, bear with me. Acts 21... What verse is it? Hold on, bear with me. 17 and 24. Okay.
Yeah.
When we arrived at Jerusalem, the brothers and sisters received us warmly. The next day, Paul and the rest of us went to see James, and all the elders were present. Paul greeted them and reported in detail what God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. When they heard this, they praised God. They said to Paul, "You see, brother, how many thousands of Jews have believed, and all of them are zealous for the law. They have been informed that you teach all the Jews who live among the Gentiles to turn away from Moses, telling them not to circumcise their children, live according to our customs. What shall we do? They will certainly hear that you have come, so do what we tell you. There are 4 men of us who have made a vow. Take these men and join in their purification rites and pay their expenses so they can have the head shaved. Then everyone will know there is no truth in these reports about you, but that you yourself are living obedient to the law." Yeah. The thing is, though, the whole issue in Acts 15 though was about circumcision, how you don't need to be circumcised.
Acts 15 is about Gentiles. Acts 21 is about Jews, which is what we're talking about. Acts 15 doesn't help you here. Acts 21, Paul is clearly doing something the disciples who just can't believe he's doing. But he's been accused of doing it. Take the Nazarite vow to show you're not doing it. So the disciples of Jesus were not in agreement with Paul when he was teaching Jews that live amongst the Gentiles, you no longer need to keep the laws of Moses.
They have been informed that you teach all Jews. Bear with me.
Yeah, let it sink in. It gets worse.